Before you begin, I would like you to remember that whenever you're making anything for your own consumption, there are no rules except to make it safe. Always make things to fit your own needs and not model it on other people's ideals. The most important thing to remember is to be resourceful, practical, and patient.
Blue, the feeling behind my eyes.
The foot pedal will be connected to this mono jack to control the delay timer.
You stood out 'cause you were in red. Then,
For the power terminals, I use regular brass screws.
against my intentions, I let you turn me violet instead. Summer high, met you in August. New York, back to my cold apartment. Distance sucks, but at least I'm still with you. Whiteout skies, middle November. You and I, flights to wherever. I don't mind, as long as it's with you. As long as it's with you. At the festival that we met at, where you were just a face in a crowd. And now I can't imagine me with anybody else. As we close out the night underneath the lilac sky. Summer high, met you in August. New York, back to my cold apartment. Distance sucks, but at least I'm still with you. Whiteout skies, middle November. You and I, flights to wherever. I don't mind, as long as it's with you. As long as it's with you. As long as it's with you.
I'm using a 12 volt 200 amp relay because I have other plans for this unit, but you could use a lower amperage if you're only going to use this for battery welding.
Blue, the feeling behind my eyes. You stood out 'cause you were in red. Then, against my intentions, I let you turn me violet instead. Summer high, met you in August. New York, back to my cold apartment. Distance sucks, but at least I'm still with you. Whiteout skies, middle November. You and I, flights to wherever. I don't mind, as long as it's with you. As long as it's with you.
I wasn't sure how to remove the access windows, so here I opened the timer unit to figure that out.
At the festival that we met at, where you were just a face in a crowd. And now can't imagine me with anybody else. As we close out the night underneath the lilac sky. Summer high, met you in August. New York, back to my cold apartment. Distance sucks, but at least I'm still with you.
On the input side of the unit, you'll see DC plus and DC minus. That is power to the unit. Where you see the in plus and in minus, those are the controls for the unit. You could put the switch either between the minus or the plus.
White out skies, middle November. You and I, flights to wherever. I don't mind as long as it's with you. As long as it's with you. As long as it's with you. Blue, the feeling behind my eyes. You stood out 'cause you were in red. Then, against my intentions, I let you turn me violet instead. Summer high, met you in August. New York, back to my cold apartment. Distance sucks, but at least I still wait.
Normally, people would use a diode in series or parallel to protect the circuit. In this case, I added a full bridge wave rectifier, which feeds the delay circuit directly. That way, I don't have to worry about the polarity on the leads, and hence the circuit is always protected.
With you. White out skies, middle November. You and I, flights to wherever. I don't mind as long as it's with you. As long as it's with you.
The bridge rectifier is connected directly to the input terminals, and the output is fed to the delay unit.
At the festival that we met at, where you were just a face in a crowd, and now I can't imagine me with anybody else. As we
In this case, I connected a pedal, i.e. the switch, to the in plus terminal, but you could easily connect it to the in negative terminal as well.
close out the night underneath the lilac sky. Summer high, met you in August. New York, back to my cold apartment. Distance sucks, but at least I'm still with you. White out skies, middle November. You and I, flights to wherever. I don't mind as long as it's with you. As long as it's with you. Blue, the feeling behind my eyes. You stood out 'cause you were in red. Then, against my intentions, I let you turn me violet instead. Summer high, met you in August. New York, back to my cold apartment. Distance sucks, but at least I'm still with you. White out skies, middle November. You and I, flights to wherever. I don't mind as long as it's with you. As long as it's with you.
Now I connect the relay to the timer circuit and the full bridge rectifier.
imagine me with anybody else as we close out the night underneath.
The unit is basically completed now, and I'm using an old circuit board as a cover for the bottom.
The lilac sky, summer high, met you in August, New York, back
Now we'll work on the main leads for the input and the output.
to my cold apartment. Distance sucks, but at least I'm still with you. White out skies, middle November. You and I, flights to wherever. I don't mind as long as it's with you. As long as it's with you. Blue, the feeling behind my eyes. You stood out 'cause you were in red. Then, against my intentions, I let you turn me violet instead. Summer high, met you in August, New York, back to my cold apartment. Distance sucks, but at least I'm still with you. White out skies, middle November. You and I, flights to wherever. I don't mind as long as it's with you. As long as it's with you. At the festival that we met at, where you were just a face in a crowd, and now I can't imagine me with anybody else as we close out the night underneath the lilac sky. Summer high, met you in August, New York, back to my cold apartment. Distance sucks, but at least I'm still with you. White out skies, middle November. You and I, flights to wherever. I don't mind as long as it's with you. As long as it's with you.
It's now time to do some light duty testing.
Blue, the feeling behind my eyes. You stood out 'cause you were in red. Then, against my intentions, I let you turn me.
This delay unit has many different functions. If you plan to purchase the exact unit, to program it for welding, you need to push and hold the set button for 4 seconds. Then you navigate to program number 13, push set once more. Now you need to set the time duration. Be mindful of the decimal place. In this case, because of the thickness of the nickel strips that I'm using, I set it to decimal 1. If you plan to use thicker strips, you might need to increase the time duration. This is also based on the power supply that you plan to use.
Violet instead. Summer high, met you in August, New York, back to my cold apartment. Distance sucks, but at least I'm still with you.
Quick test now to see if the polarity protection will work.
White out skies, middle November. You and I, flights to wherever. I don't mind as long as it's with you. As long as it's with you.
And it does. Here is a completed unit, and now we'll test it using a car battery. First I started off using the wrong polarity. Then I switched to using the right polarity. In both cases you could see that the circuit powered on, which means that the rectifier is doing its job.
The festival that we met at, where you were just a face in a crowd, and now I can't imagine me with anybody else. As we close out the night underneath the lilac sky, summer high, met you in August, New York, back to my cold apartment.
At this point you could use small pieces of nickel strips just to see if the time duration and the power is adequate.
Distance sucks, but at least I'm still with you. White out skies, middle November, you and I, flights to wherever. I don't mind as long as it's with you. As long as it's with you.
If you're not making proper contact, you'll burn the nickel strips, as in this example.
The feeling behind my eyes, you stood out 'cause you were in red. Then, against my intentions, I let you turn me violet instead. Summer high, met you in August, New York, back to my cold apartment. Distance sucks, but at least I'm still with you. White out skies, middle November, you and I, flights to wherever. I don't mind as long as it's with you. As long as it's with you.
This is what should happen if you get it right.
The festival that we met at, where you were just a face in a crowd, and now I can't imagine me with anybody else. As we close out the night underneath the lilac sky, summer high, met you in August, New York, back to my cold apartment. Distance sucks, but at least I'm still with you. White out skies, middle November, you and I, flights to wherever. I don't mind as long as it's with you. As long as it's with you.
Okay, so it works well actually. I hope you enjoyed the video. Can you please subscribe and like the video? Thank you very much.